Standardbred Canada is exploring how to select a Standardbred yearling in this next video of our how-to series. We'll be speaking about the yearling inspection process with industry experts Trevor Ritchie, a Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame driver who currently provides yearling inspection services to multiple clients, as well as Mark Steacy, an O'Brien Award-winning horseman who has built a successful career on selecting and developing young horses. In this video, we'll discuss the important components of the yearling selection process, including pedigree, yearling videos, and physical yearling inspection. Before you start the yearling selection process in earnest, whether you are targeting regional racing or Grand Circuit racing, 2- and 3-year-old stakes, a long-term racehorse, or future breeding prospect, it's important to determine your budget and your goals to help narrow your focus. Trevor, every year from September to November, there are thousands of yearlings at sales across North America and many options. How do you decide what's the right yearling for you to purchase?
That's a big question. Well, I mean, it all starts, we get a catalog on the internet, which we got a week or so ago.
Yep.
That's the start. So you start looking for your favorite pedigrees that you want, that you'd be interested in. Then from there, we get the catalog. I've a week later, 2 weeks later, you get a physical catalog. And then, you start folding corners of the catalog. Then the videos start coming out slowly but surely. And you start looking at the videos from the ones that you're interested in. And then the next step is, if you can, you get to the farms to look at the horses, conformation-wise. And hopefully, if you have time, have them turned out, the ones that you're kind of narrowing it down to. And then once the sale starts, you go back to the ones you've narrowed it down to even more, and the ones that you haven't seen at the farms. And you try to get a list that sometimes can be long and other times not so long.
So once you've got that catalog or the online roster for one of those yearling sales, what do you look for on a pedigree page?
Well, there's certain sires that I'm going to, look for at the start. There's, some that have been very successful. So basically I'm looking for that. It's always nice to have all the cards in your favor. So, but then you also got to look at what matches up to that sire as well. So, but yeah, the first thing that catches my eye is the sire of the yearling, and then the production of the mare after that. I like to see a mother with probably show some speed, like a fast record, not necessarily made a lot of money, but at least showed some speed. But there's been a lot of good mares too that never even raced. So then after that, I probably look to see what she's produced. Is this the first foal? Is this the 10th foal or whatnot? But and then if she's produced a couple, I want to see that they've done something. If she's missed a couple times in a row, I'm probably going to stay away. And then I might look back to the second dam and a little bit to the third dam, but more so the first two families mean everything to me.
Do you keep tabs on families that you have previously inspected yearlings from, and how much does that impact what you're looking at when you're looking at that page?
Yeah, I look at families that I'm familiar with firstly, probably, and I've gone back to full brothers and full sisters, but I'm not so sure that I'd want to do that all the time. It works once in a while, but I think it mostly doesn't work. But yeah, no, especially if I seen mares that on the racetrack that showed something, and it doesn't always show right on paper, but I've seen that before, that'll entice me more to pay more attention to that.
In terms of sire lines, how do you assess or look at or consider first crop stallions?
So I've had some luck with first crop stallions, and I don't mind trying that. As long as the stallion as a racehorse was, for what I think, is successful. yeah, if I thought they were a fast, tough racehorse, then I would definitely try a first crop stallion, and I have, and I've had some luck doing that. Um, but you know, there's some if they were just mild on the racetrack, I'd probably stay away until I see that there's proof.
How do you assess a pedigree page? What are the things that you look for in a pedigree page? What are the things that would make you turn a page corner down? And what are the things that would just make you turn a page altogether?
Well, with me, I start with sires, and I'm just kind of going with the fashionable sires, the ones that are, you know, showing promise right off or that they've already showed that they can produce a good horse. I'm not a first crop sire horse. It's not because I don't believe that a new sire might be a great sire, but you just don't know. And I've seen so many great race horses that had great pedigree. I've actually seen them myself at the yearling sales, and you know, given them high marks and confirmation. They haven't been that great at sires. Others have been great. So I miss the ones that are great, but I also miss but I don't run into the ones that aren't great. And I've found that the first crop sires, they always seem to be in demand. They always seem to bring a premium. And, you know, I just am trying to avoid the premium price, go with the you know, the tried and proven sort of thing.
And on the production side of the dam, what are you looking for, and what are those elements that are pros and cons from a mare's production?
Well, I mean, I'm like everybody else. You know, you want to see pedigree. You want to see horses that have, you know, raced real well. You want to see. I like early speed, like most people do. You like to see, you know, where the pedigrees had a champion somewhere along the line. I like to see a second dam who's had some fillies that have then produced, that gone on to produce themselves. You even sometimes have to go down to a third dam, you know, a real strong maternal family. Maybe the second dam hasn't had any fillies to produce horses, and the first dam's maybe only had one or two that are, you know, just okay. But then you go down to the third dam and see if there's some champions. There's so many ins and outs and likes and dislikes. It's like reading a book. You know, some people like the book and some people don't like the book.
And what about geldings? Does a gelding scare you off on a yearling page?
No, not so much. I know it's going to make me think a little bit. I'm going to wonder why they gelded that horse. You know, there's different reasons for that. But if it was gelded because it's a crazy foal or something, you know, then I'd probably avoid that. Or if it was gelded for some health problem. But a lot of times it'll just save me from doing myself when I get home. Like, you know, I bought a yearling last year off a sire, and because that sire has a reputation, first thing I did when I got it home was geld it. So, right. But no, that's not a deal breaker.
What if you see a gelding on the pedigree page?
Well, I mean, if there's a lot of geldings, if you know, most of the page is full of geldings, because I'm looking for a home run like everybody else. But some people don't mind a racehorse, which if they end up to being a good racehorse, that's great. But I'm looking for that one horse in a million that can be a stallion someday. So yeah, for me, if there are a lot of geldings in the family, it must be, it is a little bit of a turnoff.
Then once you've selected your horses based on the pedigree page, we now move over to the yearling video. What are the aspects of a video that you're looking to see, and pros and cons?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, I like a nice fluid gait on a horse. For sure, you're paying attention to them if they wing in. You know, I'm like everybody else. You don't want them to wing in. You know, you end up with interference problem with the knees. I like them to be, you know, their heads level and their ears forward and like their work. And you know, just kind of a light on their feet sort of thing. I think it's something that you kind of, you know, you get used to. It's hard to explain, but you know, you find out what you like and what you don't like.
You know, videos can be doctored up pretty good, but what I mostly look for is the headshot coming at you, going away from you. I look to see if they're winging to their knees or paddling out too bad, if they're too wide behind, too narrow behind. stuff like that. The side view doesn't mean so much to me because, like, I think they can fix that to make it look good. Um, I like a horse that's relaxed on the video, if you can tell that. And, you know, but mostly the front and rear view is what's important to me.
What says to you in a yearling video that the yearling is relaxed?
Well, you know, if they're going along and moving along, you know, it's hard to tell how fast they're going, but if they're moving along decent and their ears are not up and their head's not climbing in the air and their tail, most of them will have their tail all up in the air, but if I find especially a trotter with their tail down and relaxed, that kind of entices me too.
How much do horses change in your experience from the time that they've filmed those yearling videos up into sale time?
Well, no, not a lot because they usually film like, you know, maybe a month out or something like that, so they don't change a whole lot. I'll tell you something. I've bought some horses myself that on the video I loved them. When I got them to the track, I hated them. So the video is not the end all of their gait. But they can, of course, they only show you the best part of the video. It might take them half an hour to show you 1 minute worth of good video. So of course you're cognizant of that also.
Then the next step for you would obviously be an in-person inspection. I know you like to also go to the farms and view some. If you can't do that, I'm assuming you're going to the sale and you're having that in-person inspection there.
Yeah. So it's sometimes it's hard to find the time to go to the farms because you're racing all the time. But I really think it's an advantage if you can get there. And so yeah, my shorter list, I'll pick the farms and I'll call them up and make an appointment, and I'll tell them to bring out such and such when I get there, and that's what they do. And then I'll narrow it down there as to which ones because I look at their conformation, whatnot, size, and then I'll narrow it down to and then ask them if they'll turn that horse out in the paddock. It doesn't take long. I can usually tell within 3 or 4 minutes if I like the horse in the paddock or not.
How much in general does a yearling change between that video or that in-person inspection for you and the time of the sale?
Well, the way they move is not going to change. That's going to be the same. But like sometimes you overlook things because you're looking in like at each individual horse in probably 10 minutes or so. So it's nice to go back at the sale time and recheck that to see what you did miss or something. But unfortunately, at the sale, you're just going to see them walk. You're not going to see them at a jog or a trot or anything like that. But so I like to recheck them at the sale, and I may go back several times.
With opportunities to inspect that yearling prior to the sale, possibly having a farm visit, what's your process then when you actually do get to the sale to look at that yearling just before it enters the sale ring, a day or so prior?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I say we, me and my wife, because my wife is also very good, in my opinion, at picking out yearlings, maybe better than me. But you go, you look at the conformation, you're starting to narrow it down, slowly but surely, or at least I am trying to keep my list as small as I can. I mean, I like a big list if it's available, but it usually is not. You narrow it down on you start comparing one to the other, and then you might see, okay, well, this one's got a little more depth or this or that, and yeah, that's the process. And then we keep going back, like we might go back 3, maybe 4 times and even narrow it down more or confirm what you've seen the first few times. It's just a process.
What are elements that would dissuade you from a yearling purchase for a horse like that, where you've turned down the corner of the page, and make you just uncurl that page altogether?
Well, manners.
Yep.
I mean, you see, like, especially in a stud colt, if they're roaring and screaming and hard to handle, you're likely going to end up with a gelding. And because I'm looking for the home run like everybody else, But if they're a gelding, you're missing part of that home run because obviously they can't turn into a stallion. So yeah, manners. I like to see them, you know, like all of the colts, after a while they get sick of being at the, you know, they're locked in the stall for 3 or 4 days on end. Most of them have been used to exercise. They haven't been getting that. You know, they can get a little pokey and et cetera, et cetera. But the ones that are still alert, willing to lead, seem happy, I like to see that in a horse.
What is your process for physically inspecting that yearling?
First thing that catches my eye would be the size of them, and then I look at their conformation. I like to see them walk, you know, back and forth to make sure that there's sound or something. You know, I go over to make sure there's no swelling here or there. Where, you know, the knees are very important to me. The feet are very important. But yeah, no, soundness and manners of them mean a lot at the sale.
What are the key elements of conformation that you look for in a yearling, both pros and cons, when you're doing that in-person inspection?
Yeah, so I don't like a horse that toes out real bad. I can put up with that just slightly with a trotter, but a pacer, not at all. I have bought horses that toe in a little bit. I can forgive that. But I like to see, you know, a good athletic horse, and with a sharp head and a sharp eye. That's pretty much the first thing I look for.
Talk to me a bit about X-rays. Do you get yearlings X-rayed prior to a sale?
I do not get them X-rayed prior to the sale. There are some farms that actually do X-ray them prior, and if you ask them, they'll you know, supply them to you if you want, which I do if I'm interested in one of their horses. I always X-ray them after the sale to see if there's any issues, OCDs, etc., that need to be taken care of.
What are your thoughts on having a yearling X-rayed before it's purchased?
I think it's to your advantage. It's just whether you can afford it or not, because it can be very expensive. You know, especially, and myself, I've started doing this like for 8 or 10 years now, and you know, I probably X-ray, I don't know, like 30 or so each year, and that's, you know, at $500-600 a shot. That's it adds up, especially when you like something that X-ray's fine, then you go to bid on it, you get outbid. So that can be very costly, but I do think it's an advantage, and I've had my vets turn down several horses that I probably would have bid on or, you know, tried to buy. It's awful if you don't do that. You get the horse, you spend quite a bit of money, get that horse home, and then he's not jogging the way you want, and you find something that, you know, that you should have found at the yearling sale.
If someone was looking to have a yearling X-rayed at a sale, what are the steps you would suggest for them to make that happen?
Yeah, well, it's pretty simple. There's vets there. There's likely 3 or 4 vets that are always there. If you don't know one of them yourself, you can always ask one of the regulars. They'll lead you, you know, they'll introduce you to one of the vets, and that's what they're there for. And you know, they're there for the 3 or 4 days of the sale, and they're usually pretty busy. So you won't have trouble finding a vet to do it.
Once you've properly vetted and assessed the yearlings you are interested in buying, refer to your sales catalog for purchasing information and what you need to do ahead of the bidding process. Good luck in securing your desired yearling, and thanks for watching.